Yeah, me know. This is Kia Bamba song. We run the whole of Switzerland and the whole of Europe. And we run the whole of etc, etc. You don't know. Devil Shaman says something. I back them to the max. And it's like some idiot someone want to stop them from get a piece of the pie.
Welcome to Only Friends on a Powder, your one-stop spot for all things snow, mountain and travel. Get all you need to know about epic destinations, inspiring stories from all around the globe, legends, and as well as creators, entrepreneurs, brands, owners, and more. We're here to talk about what's hot, what's changing the game, and what's incoming. Come along for the ride, froth out, and let's have fun doing it. So, ladies, I just messed that up, but we're going to go with it. We're lucky enough to have Snow royalty here, the one and only Jassie Salveson, and my better half, lady behind the scenes, legend, Alicia Toner. And we really wanted to just talk about, obviously, make some cocktails, which we just did, but then also talk about ROJO, Jassie, life as Snow royalty, and get a little bit about all of that to start on, what could be many episodes in the future, hopefully. So I guess to start, we really wanted to touch on a little bit of the past of ROJO. Obviously, your mum and dad highly involved in that whole journey, mum being the Joe in ROJO, legendary Joe. So let's get a little bit of a take on your early days and the history of all that before we jump into a little bit about more of your personal history and why you're chilling on the couch.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me. I'm very stoked to be here talking to you guys about ROJO and the legacy that mum and dad have built for sure. But yeah, as you said, ROJO, very commonly confused for Rojo, which is red in Spanish. It's ROJO. It's Ro and Joe. So it was Ro and Joe who started the business. Two best friends. They were both textile designers and doing a snow season at Mount Buller in 1987. They really saw a gap in the market for women's designed surf and snowwear product that was creative and unique. So from that was born hand-painted headbands, which were fleece lined, and the tagline became art for your head. Now, I'm sure many of the listeners will know, but for those who don't, if you can imagine, it was the 80s. So everything was very bright and colorful. So it was very artistic and very loud and very proud. So kind of from that being a women's specific surf and snowwear product, we eventually grew and were able to produce things like t-shirts. That kind of became the next thing. And then outerwear and things of that nature. It's kind of grown into what we are today, which is pretty phenomenal. We're still family owned and operated, female led and independently owned, which is something that we're incredibly proud of. And we've been around for almost 4 decades now. So it'll be 4 decades in 2027, which is kind of coming up. It's actually not that far away.
Yeah.
It's not. It's very close. very close.
Too close. But yeah, at the time, Ro and Joe were doing something which was so bold and something that was so unique. And they were operating in a male-dominated space. Like there really weren't any females coming through and creating product in the way that they were. But Ro and Joe, they never saw this as a reason to not do it. They were only inspired to kind of go out there and encourage and empower more women to discover the mountain and surf lifestyle that we all love. And kind of from that, our mantra, born in the mountains, lives by the ocean, was born as well, which is something that I think is so ingrained in board riding culture. It's something that I think we all really, really relate to because it's that sense of adventure and freedom that you might feel in the mountains or by the ocean as well.
I feel like many snow people would turn around and say, well, if I can't be up the mountain, I might as well be right next to the ocean.
Exactly. That's why we live in Torquay.
So I think that gives a really great context to it all and really shows how, especially at that time in Australia where business was really male dominated, how ahead of the time they were. You got anything to?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely wild. Like, I'm not going to give away my ancient age right now, but I grew up surfing and, I think back to those days. It was alive in 1987. But, you know, you think about the surfing world and it's like you could name the prominent female surfers like on one hand, you know, like right, like immediately springs to mind for me, someone growing up and thinking of surfing culture is like Lane Beachley, Lisa Anderson, like just the pinnacle. But it's like today you could just fire off so many names, but back then, like the women that were actually in the media and like known as surfers and stuff back in the 80s and 90s was so minimal because, as we know, money is only just coming to the sport recently, a similar level to what men receive and that sort of thing. And I think about when you look at, you know, as you said, that, you know, the 40 years is coming up, there's so many brands right now celebrating such incredible milestones. And with that, which I absolutely love, because Dopamine Dresser over here is all of the 80s designs and everything that is coming back as part and parcel of that. And I love seeing like Rhythm Kuma at the moment celebrating like a huge milestone for them, and you guys like ROJO recreating their uniforms in this wild, bold print that I love that's coming back, because I know I've spent like a lot of time buying for the snow industry, and it went very abruptly from like fluorescence to like really earthy tones and pastels, and that continued for like a good 10 years. Like everyone's like, when's it going to end? When's it going to end? And it kept going. And look, I'm about it. It was great. But as a buyer, and I guess probably as a consumer as well, eventually it got pretty boring. So to see like those really bold like designs that have history behind them, to see that come back, and like in the case of ROJO, to see women behind that is amazing.
And I think that's actually just such an interesting point, because I think part of the success that we've had as a brand and as a company, and the reason why we see people continue coming back, is that we've had the opportunity to reinvent ourselves and explore like who is ROJO to the modern consumer and things of that nature. But you have to be, as a brand, mindful of how can we exist long term, but how can we still take inspiration from our heritage? It's just so awesome to see.
I feel like, you know, walking into a surf shop in the last couple of days, I feel like so many brands who had that cool heritage in the 90s with their like retro looking logos and everything, and were, you know, at the forefront and really trying to be cool and edgy back then. They've got a really massive advantage of like recreating that stuff and making it epic and making it really stand out. I was like, I said to a friend of ours who's also a rep, and their brand is very similarly reaping a lot of benefits from being retro and cool back in the 90s. And I was like, it must be really easy for the designers. The response was that it's easy as in like getting the aesthetic, but then with the modern technology and the change in materials and making things that look kind of cool, and especially in a 30-year-old photo where there's not a lot of focus.
It's a bit pixelated.
Yeah, you can't tell that it was just like a strip like sewed on.
Yeah.
But now we've got this new retro look, but it's really well made, and it's going to last. So
there's a price tag that goes along with that, the production, everything that goes into it. It's not, it's not as easy as it sounds. But yes, you're right. There's an advantage in the sense that they can lean on past designs. And as we know at our age, fashion is circular. And, you know, I think working in ski shops, even like the last 5 years before this, like renaissance of previous fashion has really come in. We've had like staff, the girls wearing men's 34-inch pants and stuff like that, and you're like, yep, now I know how my mum feels. Here we go again. This is not new, and it's wild to watch, but it's also, on the flip side of that, so fabulous to see brands getting to look back to where they started, kind of thing.
So with that, Jassie, like obviously, you know, super rich heritage, original woman power kind of start. What do you personally remember about growing up with especially your mum, probably more early on, super passionate about doing her thing?
Well, exactly. Mum is just so passionate, and she's very strong and very determined, which is no surprise considering what she's been able to build. And she always instilled into my sister and I just that to always put your best foot forward and to always try your hardest and do the best job that you could possibly do. And that is something that we carry throughout every aspect that we do. And one of the ways we were so fortunate that we really learned those lessons was through horses. So I was really lucky. I grew up with ponies and I've still got my 2 horses, but it's showing up on the days where you don't want to and you just have to. And that was a really big gift and a lesson that actually my nonna taught my mum as well. And something that she's passed on to us, which is I'm just so thankful for.
I think something I have to say about your mum is back when I was at Falls, obviously I was in buying and for many years buying a lot of the majority of our product from you guys. But one thing that stands out, and now meeting Jo again as a now mum and going to your house recently and taking my wild children there and that sort of thing, is considering she's half of she's the Jo in ROJO, she's very behind the scenes. And I think this was more part of what I was going to mention, when we're talking about I guess the female-led kind of thing is, it's quite interesting where she is very, as bold as she is and amazing as she is, she's very your dad is very much I'm not going to say salesperson, he's the face, and he's very much he's the person that you deal with and that sort of thing, which he's also incredible. But when I was buying and anything, I always dealt with your dad, and Jo would always just pop in and be like, hello. And even when we've gone up just to pop in and say hello, she's just in the office designing, doing her stuff
on the grind.
Yeah, and I think
100%.
it's really interesting that she's the foundation of the brand, and as you said, so strong and so passionate, but she's just so happy just doing what she does. And I think that's such an incredible part of your whole story, of that she doesn't need to be I'm Jo, she just does what she does, and it's very admirable, I think. And I don't think people realize how much what and who she is, and the strength behind who she is as a human and her skills and everything. So
she has just such an unwavering strength, and she is just a constant source of inspiration for the way that she carries herself and problem solves in the world. She really does tackle things head on, but she can sit in being uncomfortable, and she's able to let a decision blossom or a design blossom, which is such a skill set in itself, particularly nowadays as well. My sister, myself, a lot of the younger staff that work in the company, she really does take inspiration from us, and in a way we kind of are her muses alongside with our team writers as well. So she lives and breathes snow culture, but she also, because she's never left that space, is so aware of how people wear their product, whether it's a baggy unisex fitting pant and a little crop jacket, which seems to be very of the moment, or whether it's something a little bit more technical. But because she's never left that space, she's just always so on point and so innovative to ensure that the product is fitting how it should, it's performing how it should, it has all the features that it should, and it is such a collaborative process. And she's pretty remarkable that she's able to do all of that.
Oh, and just the connection is I think again, I think every resort in Australia that buys from you guys, and I'm sure international is probably the same, to have that direct link to someone that's involved in the production process
100%
or leading the production process is unique and pretty much not seen these days. And I think about, I've never been backwards and been forwards about giving feedback about what will sell, what price points work, what designs and colors are working for us. I know it wouldn't necessarily work everywhere, but we're this is what we need and want. And that was graciously taken on board as opposed to being defended is the most incredible thing ever, because I know on the flip side of the design perspective, I've been there, is that can hurt when it's something that you're doing yourself and you think this is fabulous, and then your feedback is that's not going to work for us. But she's always just been thank you, thank you.
Yeah, you're so right. And I think it's one of the strengths that we have as a family business as well. Even when just 2 weeks ago doing all the PKs through all the mountains, which was a lot of fun. But one of the things that we do lead with is just, if you have feedback, please tell us, because we're just always trying to make it better. And because we have Jo, we have David, who was so passionate about that, and we can just always implement those decisions to make the products better.
And that's an advantage for the brand as well. It's like you think about some of the bigger brands, like it's not like they're all incredible. They've grown to a size where they have all of these tiers, and that's not a bad thing. But from like a buyer or consumer through a buyer to the like production, to have that voice and be able to know that like it's going to be taken on board and implemented or considered at least is like that doesn't happen anymore. So it's amazing.
And, you know, to back all of that up, have recently been helping out you guys in the warehouse and whatnot as buying season was upon us, and I was in between work, and it's been awesome. But I can turn around and say that if Jo is worried about anything in regards to production, she will be down at that warehouse personally checking every piece that there's no issues or faults. And I was amazed at her dedication and passion towards
the brand's personal touch,
making
that's
sure
massive.
that you know everything was perfect. And to have that kind of passion after 40 years is phenomenal and really good to see.
I have heard that there is a running joke in the industry that nobody works as hard as mum or dad, and I do kind of believe them when you hear the stories about them doing their product checks and doing all the things like that. Like they're just so hands-on from the top down, which is incredible for the team.
Yeah, I'd say smart ass comments about your dad right now. But
I mean, we all could.
But I'll keep it clean. You can thank me later, Dave. So that was awesome. I guess to move on from that, let's touch a little bit more on your personal journey into ROJO, what brought you there, and you know why are you working with your bloody parents?
I know, I ask myself that every day. No, kidding. Very happy to be there. I'm very grateful to be there, actually. So yeah, I born and bred Torquay, grew up down here, which is very synonymous with the ROJO mantra. And of course, grew up skiing and snowboarding, but never did race club or anything like that. Mum and dad were a little bit conscious of not being a Nepo baby. They wanted me to really enter the space on my own terms, which I'm really grateful for that. But yeah, I went to school, finished year 12, school captain, went on to do a Bachelor of Arts at Melbourne Uni in Media Communications. A really big passion of mine was actually acting, and I did go on to study that after I got my degree, which I loved, and it taught me so many skills. But COVID, and I kind of realized that it wasn't really the path that I wanted to go down. So I found myself throughout all that time, particularly, so when I was at uni, I actually worked up at Mount Buller. So after year 12, I started my first snow season, worked at Buller. So I was 18, fresh little baby. Did that. It was a lot of fun. Then went on to do my degree and managed the shop. Mum and dad had a little shop called the Alpine Life, which was next to the old Karura. There is a photo of it in the pub up at Buller if you do see it. It's really cool. So I managed that, and I worked in retail since I was 14. So I was always really involved in that space. I actually worked at Strapper in Torquay.
Rite of passage down here, I think.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I loved it. I learned so many things there. And yeah, I slowly found myself doing little things that kind of kept leading me back to the business. And it would be this little thing inside of me that would go, oh, maybe I should step into that. And I would push it down. I'd be no, like, you're going to do your own thing. There was like an angel and a devil on my shoulder. But I was very determined to definitely carve out my own path. After uni, it was suggested perhaps you should come do 12 months in the business to get some work experience. So that was kind of how that happened. I honestly just loved it. I found that it was second nature. You know, we've grown up where business decisions were discussed very openly in front of my sister and I at the dinner table.
Yeah, what happens when mum and dad are in business together?
It does. You know, when I was a kid, I would take naps in the warehouse. I would, whenever trade show was on, I would be there with the staff who would be working, you know, ridiculously late hours building walls and painting wallpaper with these massive buckets of glue, and everyone's just fueled by beer and pizza for weeks to get it all.
And glue.
Yeah. And glue.
And paint. Yeah.
To get it all together. So I think it was something that I just was always so a part of, and something that came to me so naturally. And it grew from working in retail to then assisting with social media to then entering more into communications and assisting with showings. And I just really loved it. And through that was able to gain a lot of respect and understanding for what mum and dad did.
And while we're just on that with what mum and dad did, going to just, I know, your biggest involvement is with the ROJO side of things and the marketing behind that, but there's obviously another bunch of brands under the umbrella of ROJO and what's principal distribution. Can you just give us a little bit more about that, and obviously name drop and allude, considering ROJO was a female-only brand, and how that all evolved over the years?
Yeah, so there's definitely just been so much opportunity to expand the product offering. So through that came the distribution side of things with Capital Union and 686. Perhaps that's almost a story in itself.
Yeah.
And then also Power Gloves, which we now operate out of Seattle as well. And that's still very much connected to that side over there. And then, of course, we have Allude, which is the brother brand in a way to ROJO. And then, yeah, we do have our things like Alpine Life and Name Drop. But yeah, I suppose like ROJO's always allowed the opportunity for that stuff to come too.
Yes, I guess ROJO's led the way for you guys to, need a base and an operation in such that you could then branch out to other stuff, and that stuff came to you because
It was an opportunity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you guys were obviously doing pretty well and distributing other stuff. So
Well, it makes sense to
what happens.
separate branding as well, right? So it's
Yeah.
clear to a consumer
Yeah.
how they're separated, which is smart.
Yeah, and you can't be everything to everyone, and you shouldn't
No.
be either.
Yeah.
No, so
And the
and not that that's
consumer
not the trend.
side of it they don't see that. They just need to understand like the actual brand itself. So the separation is smart. And I think if people aren't aware of vertical brands, you should Google it, because it's a thing, and you'd be surprised at how many products you purchase are vertical, but it makes a huge amount of success to profit margin for businesses so that you can keep buying their products, but also for businesses to diversify and offer different things to different demographics, audiences, buyers, etc. So yeah.
Cool. I guess what's next, really, ROJO's obviously massively a leader in women being at the forefront of sport and representing women. That outdoor culture is always and is a growing area of women's sport. Like, what do you think is next? And is there any ideas with ROJO? And I know you especially are super passionate about this. Is there anywhere that you see that going next? Is there anything that you really want to get behind? I know you guys are supporting a number of events happening pretty much at the moment as well. So what's the vision?
That's a good question, Ozzy. It's a big question. It's a very big question. With the business, as we sort of touched on before, we definitely are connected with, and we deal with a lot of international partners. So being aware of what is happening overseas and how that influences our relatively small snow industry here in Australia, it definitely means that we're always thinking about how we can adapt. And without giving too much away, we honestly really believe that smaller is better, so that we can be more adaptive to unpredictable events. Like, we have seen so much change in the last 5 years. Not that anyone wants to talk about it, but whether that's COVID or whether that is economic factors or whether it's a poor snow season, we see perhaps that being smaller, allowing us to pivot more to better respond to those trends, and therefore developed better product to suit where the market is at that point in time, is a real advantage.
Yeah, definitely a sweet spot there.
Yeah, I think so. However, we still want to grow our community overseas, but we want to be really strategic and targeted as we do that. of course, like we are an international brand now, and still being independently owned, yeah, exactly. We need to find that sweet spot of where that right bubble is. But being a women's brand as well, supporting women in community and snow sport is just so important to us. Outside of ROJO, I volunteer with Chicks Who Shred, and ROJO is a partner of those events as well. And Chicks Who Shred is all about encouraging women to progress their skill skiing and snowboarding and enter the space. So we're always trying to think about what are those avenues for people entering the sport and how can they access it? Because as we know, as a first timer going to the snow, if you haven't grown up with it, that ability to get better, but also that price point to enter the sport is really, really high.
Just not being completely overwhelming because you have no idea what you're doing.
100%.
On a side note.
Dirty side note.
Well, yeah, it is hard. And I really believe, that I get so excited when I hear about people heading to the snow and having their first adventure, or just being able to step outside. Last year when we were at the Chicks Who Shred events, we had a beautiful young woman there who was a similar age to me, and she had only ever snowboarded with a boyfriend, and she hadn't made the friends and connections that I've had the privilege of making through the sport. Through coming to the Chicks Who Shreds events, she was able to meet a network of women who all inspire and uplift each other to go riding and skiing. It's so sick. So I'm stoked to be able to support that just on the side, but also through my work as well. And of course, we do collaborate with Boarding for Breast Cancer as well, which we love.
I think, that sentiment is really similar to, like, I'd always have the best time working in the ski shop when I was stoked because I'd been shredding and I had an awesome power day, and I was telling people about going out and taking out equipment that I was stoked on because I'd had a good day, and building that fire and stoke. I think passionate about that, it's really easy to go to work every day.
So powerful, because I think if you did a survey across Australia, it's still like the amount of times when we were at Falls, people were like, I didn't even know there was snow in Australia.
Yeah,
Like,
that is so common.
Pardon me? Like, there's several mountains here. Like, it's a big industry. But people don't realise that. And I think it's really amazing. And I think, like, a segue to that is, it's not about us, but like I think, like, our daughter is currently going to see an OT, and it's part of Chicks Who Shred, and her OT, excuse me, is an Olympic judge of skiing. And you just realise how small our Torquay community is, but how small the ski industry is and everything, but how also fabulous that is, because it creates an immediate rapport and connection with someone that, failing that person might have taken several, like, interactions to develop that relationship with. But the minute we had a chat, I was just like, oh, here we go. And it's like, it's such a fabulous thing, I think. Like, it's very powerful.
Yeah, I love that. It actually just reminds me of something that Gumpy from C3 said is, cool doesn't always pay the bills. And you need to be mindful of what the market needs. And something that we really do try to focus on is we need to be commercial, but we need to always take kind of inspiration from our heritage, but we still need to be really mindful of what our impact is on the environment and sustainability. What's our responsibility as a business as well? We have, in terms of steps that we're making towards our sustainability goal, which we have termed positive change, we utilize and we identify the recycled fibers that we utilize throughout the buying process. And that's also displayed on our website. We're really proud to have moved away from traditional DWR waterproofing methods. So all our waterproofing is plant-based, PFC free of all the forever chemicals and things of that nature, which is awesome. And we also we use as many recycled fibers as we can at this point without compromising the performance of the product. Mm-hmm. It depends on what range it is. So our all-terrain has a lot of stretch in it, so not as many recycled fibers in that, and saying that the insulation and the lining's still recycled. But then you look at our classics or our heritage collection as well, and that has even more recycled fibers. I think the products are like 80% recycled, give or take, depending on what it is. But also the way that we send out our orders are in the biodegradable bags. We have low energy and energy efficient light globes, but we're always thinking of the next steps that we can take to create further positive change. So I believe in our 26 range, we have recycled base layer. So we've spent honestly years trying to find a fiber that performs properly, that is still warming, non-peeling and quick drying and 4-way stretch, but is recycled, which is awesome.
I think that sort of information is super powerful because like I'm definitely like doing design and things like that. It's that sort of information. Like I actually said to Oz, because obviously been helping at the warehouse and stuff, is your mum sending, I think, like seconds and faulty goods to Uganda or somewhere. It's like you guys need to shout that from the rooftops because it's really important. Like you guys are so ethical and like, as you said, homegrown and family oriented anyway, but the giving back and the like mindfulness of the planet, the giving back and recycling and donating and everything like that. They're like, it's such a, that's a motivator for me as a purchaser. And I don't know that it's necessarily widely, I think everyone knows that you guys are obviously a fabulous organic, like ethical brand, but like that sort of information I think is so good.
Let's just shout out exactly that. Joe is in the background, never wants much
publicity
or time in the
spotlight
or the limelight, whatever you want to call it. So therefore there's a lot of things that you guys do, which I definitely agree goes unnoticed or unseen because you're not shouting it from the hilltops. So kudos, but start shouting it.
I think one of the reasons that I feel that we don't shout it is because we have to be so mindful of greenwashing because we don't want to overdo it, because you look at some other brands and their whole process is so clean and renewable, and that's our goal, but we don't want to claim that before we're 100% there.
You're fake.
You know what, though, I think even though it's like sharing like that we're not perfect. Like none of us as humans are perfect. But it's more the aspirations of this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And it's like everything is, it's not just as a brand, but as a human. Like we're never perfect, even till the day we die. But the fact that you're taking steps to always be better is enough, I think, personally.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I think, yes, we could all talk about steps of how we could be better for a long time, and I would probably be the longest story about that one. But on that note, I think this is a conversation that will be ongoing, and there'll be further chapters to it.
Joe is the Joe in ROJO, so that's a big part of the brand. Or now the face, as you said, you've led into that you've done like a degree in comms and media and that sort of thing, so that makes a whole lot more sense to me now. Is there pressure for you to
100%?
Yeah.
I think there's pressure, but in the best way possible.
Yeah.
And every decision that we carry out holds weight because in a way ROJO was mum's first baby. So there's ROJO and then me and then my younger sister Maddie, who very much takes after my mum. She's a designer. She's incredibly talented. She's currently living in London. I think she'll do amazing things. But yeah, there is pressure for sure, because I think growing up with a company, you never want people to think that I was just given this opportunity to be in the role that I am now.
So that's another like follow-up question is, do you receive judgment or perceived judgment or backlash when you're dealing with anyone that kind of like, oh, you're just the daughter, as opposed to, because I see you as like you're the face of, I guess, not a brand that never had a face, but as I mentioned before, Joe's very much in the background. Dave's been very much in the foreground, but on a business level. But in terms of brand visibility, you're 100% there. Do you feel anything from anyone in terms of any sort of pressure or judgment for that?
All I see is support.
Yeah.
I mean from her interactions with people.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Thankfully, like everyone has been incredibly supportive, and I think because we have such a fantastic community, people have really embraced perhaps seeing that more behind the scenes that is involved with our social media and marketing, which is awesome. And I like to think, a really strong relationship with all of our retail partners as well. But there is a lot of internal pressure that I probably place on myself. And I think that does come sometimes with being a woman, that you can be really hard on yourself. And because it is a legacy in a way, but we reinvent and we reimagine, you just want to, I just always want to ensure that I'm doing a good job. But I think that's more of a personal.
I guess I have my whole thing is thinking about when I was, particularly when I was buying from ROJO and different things was, and I was actually talking about this earlier today, is it's not that long ago, but we're kind of talking about the reasons why and the dynamics, and I've got my own thoughts on it, but it's actually ironic that when I think about my entire time at Falls, the only female that I had come up in terms of a rep position was Renee when she was back.
And we love Renee. Shout out Renee, best rep we ever had. Dave always says best rep.
Love her. But all the reps were men. And Oz and I were kind of like, okay, I get now being a parent that when you think about unfortunately the stereotype behind it, but if you're birthing a child and going through that, it's just logistically easier if it's the male going away and those sorts of things, and maybe that's the way it eventuated. But I think about all of the brands that came up, all the PK nights, everything that we had, it was men. It was always men, and love them to death. They're all my friends, our friends still. But I think about the only other female that came up was Renee, and it's do you see that changing at the moment? What's your thoughts behind that? Because obviously for us, we've gone through our career and now kind of at a different end of all of that experience. But what are you seeing, and what's your thoughts on that? Because I personally think it's, I won't swear, but effing fabulous. I love that, because as a very as you've said, self-driven and motivated female, to see another I love seeing the guys. They're motivational. They're all incredibly passionate about the brands they're up there representing or have founded or whatever it may be. But to see a female up there doing the same thing, for me, was it was amazing. So
it's so cool. There is so many young female reps that are killing it coming through the industry.
Shout out Sophie Morris.
We love Soph. We've got Tay Fitzy, Liv Wheeler from Smith. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say their last names.
She's
Liv's also
Maddie Myhill's number one employee.
There is a full rookie that I interviewed, and I was like, this girl is greener than grass, but I need her. And she came and worked, I think, she had 1 or 2 winters. Anyway, she had 1 or 2 winters for us, and then I was begging her to come back, and then she bailed out, and then she went and worked somewhere, and it was and I sent her the Smith thing, and I was like, you need to go for this. She's like, do you think it's bad if I tap out on this other experience? And I was like, is it your life? She's like, yeah. So I was like, live your best life, my friend. The rest is history.
So that's why I asked you before to let me get back on track. So can we get back on track now?
Can I just finish what I'm saying? Is
and also there's Meg Sweeney as well from Patagonia. She's an absolute legend.
But with the surname Sweeney,
I know,
royalty, clearly.
Yeah.
A couple of other things that we can just
Dragon Leash.
You wanted me to be part of it. Don't be a dick.
Yes, I know, but well, are they going to have to keep some of this separate, because this is getting long now? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, okay, so we're going to edit it, and it's going to take out a lot. Anyway, shut up. I've got 2 questions. / weirdest apparel story. Have you had any?
Do you have an example of one? And then
I'm just wondering, has anyone made a weird complaint or worn something? It doesn't have to be ROJO, but have you just seen something real funky that you're like, wow, that's a no? Or just some sort of vibe where you're just absolutely not? Because I think of when we were, thick in seasons, and you could pick a punter from a mile off because you'd be downstairs at the Man, and there'd be the yo bro still in their gear. We've finished shredding, we've done our praise, we've gone home, we've got changed, we've had the prees because we can't afford to drink at the pub, and old mates at the bar in his shred gear, in his boots, with his goggles upside down sideways, and we're like, it's not it. That's not it.
I've got it turtles, any strap-on turtles that protect your bottom. Yep. It's just not. They're just not quite right.
Oh.
But probably, honestly, would also save you Like if you were doing
It
rail,
probably would
like
work.
I'm sure it
But
would
also,
work.
like, come on, just endure the pain.
And like a garbage bag and jeans.
Yep, been there. I'm
Been
not going
there.
to elaborate
We've all
on
seen
that.
it.
Anyone
We've
that's
all
worked
seen
at
it.
Falls Creek has seen the family that
Yeah.
comes up wearing denim and leather and would like to rent one set of skis for the entire family. And you're like, that's not legal. Other question that I'll pivot to quickly is blockbuster movie. Who's going to play Joe? Who's going to play Dave?
Okay, so I think Joe definitely depends on age.
Right now.
Right now,
Who's Joe?
I feel like, you know, Meryl Streep
Yeah.
and Mamma Mia, Meryl
Yeah.
Streep. Yeah, that's
Okay,
Meryl.
yeah.
Is it Meryl? It's Meryl.
Yeah, Meryl Streep.
It's
yeah.
Meryl.
Love that. Yeah.
Shout out Meryl
I
Streep.
love that.
Yeah.
She's very, yes, just
And
yes.
who
And
would
Dave.
play my dad?
Maybe 60-year-old Leo
Leonardo DiCaprio.
in about 10 years.
What about like Simon Baker? Like
Yeah.
Aussie vibe. But Leo, I feel like that's almost like it's like a real big compliment to Dave, isn't it?
Yeah, but he's looking pretty old and weathered right now.
You're going to have to cut that out, babe. You can't. That's not going in there. Leo or your dad? Or his
Leo is looking kind of weathered
He is
right
now,
now. And he's 50, so kind of like similar age
Yeah.
to your dad.
But I don't
So I'm saying Leo at 60 will look like your dad at 50. And I
So
still
true.
think that's a compliment.
Who's I know who it is. But we're going to cut this all up.
Can we just
Yes, can I just say this last thing?
don't like this cut up shit. We do it and we're
Who's
done.
who's the guy from David from Baywatch? David Hasselhoff.
David Hasselhoff. Oh
David-
my,
There's Dave. It's already Dave. David Hasselhoff.
we love.
Salveson.
David Salveson Hasselhoff. That's a story for another day.
Salverhoff.
Cool. So I
Salvo.
guess we always like to have a bit of a summary at the end. I think we just touched the surface with you, Jassie.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more that could, go into that story. And I guess we can continue on. But I did before Alicia rudely.
Mate, you asked me to be part of it.
That's what happens when you marry someone.
Better than you.
Girls rule the world. Who run the world? Girls.
I think one of the last things to have a bit of a funny spin on things, Jas, we wanted to ask you is dream ROJO collab. I think that's a pretty good one
Great
for
one.
someone looking to the future. And most underrated piece of gear that you can think of while you've had a long career.
So
Things.
I'll start off with the most underrated piece of gear, and that's a ski jig.
Yep.
Yep. If
Had a
you're
long
learning to
career.
ski, if you got kids, not that I do yet, but a ski jig
Also, I'm going to go out there and say
and an edgy
he-
wedgie.
He did not let me pull them out of the archives, but I have some fabulous flared zip ROJO.
Oh,
Shit made your dad find me a pair.
Bring
Well,
those out for the
I-
promotion.
Sled outerwear that Falls gave us a uniform and I was like, no, I'm wearing these. And he was like, no, you don't need to get them out. But I'm like, they are the most underrated bad boys in the stretchy outerwear.
And I feel like that
Before
actually
their
pulls
time, but
me in.
out of their time, but in their time now.
Yeah, they are. And that pulls me into the dream collaboration. Gucci, Emil and the Sniffers. Yep.
Maybe wrote off one.
We
of them
need
as
those.
a sample. Gucci.
Louis Vuitton and Pharrell Williams, with Pharrell being creative director.
Stop.
I mean, like you said, it was a dream, so like we can reach for the stars.
dream.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Love that.
So I guess on that, Jassie, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks being here for
Once again, our podcast that we said would start at a certain time was an hour and a half late.
It's all right.
Anyway,
It's called creative collaboration. We love it.
love that.
And thank you very much for having me. It was so much fun.
Thank you for our sponsor, Rest of It, putting us to sleep later.
This is the most comfortable couch I've ever sat on. Just as like
On
a side note. It's good.
On that note, thanks for hanging out. Stay frothy. Keep watching.
Like nobody knows them kill sound, a sound clash and dance all and mash up stage shows. But some guys don't recognize, I realize, say them up them own style. A long time them they are now, them not just come. And it's been a long while. Them want a piece of the pie. Whole heap of plate and tune off a buy. Food fi feed them family, that's no lie. Any idiot little sound try fi test them I go die. Hey, them not give up. Look how long them a wait. A full time now, they get a slice of the cake. No sound fix because them bust through the gate. Through them play a good tune, and this a sound the people rate. Them we mash you up. All over the UK, America and JA. People want Kia Bamba in a dance. Them no business at all, could have friend or foe. Before them play, them want them advance.